with Glenn Davis running for lieutenant governor. Glenn, I love the way you're doing this campaign. You got an RV that you were able to buy. You've got it wrapped. You call it Mellow Yellow, which was your wife's Sherry's idea, I believe.
Yes.
Always go with the wife.
Oh, well, Shelly got on there, and it's it's got this lemon, I guess, hue to it. Hue. And so it's so she nicknamed it Mellow Yellow. It's stuck. It's got its own Facebook page coming up. It's had a couple of its own articles. It's funny. We're getting ready to travel out west, and one of the guys called me, and he said, "Glenn, are you bringing Mellow Yellow? Not are you bringing the RV? Not what are you traveling?
Mellow Yellow.
Is Mellow Yellow coming down?" So it's generated a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz. But I'll tell you, I got it because the only way we were going to get in this race is if I could travel 300 days this year. And I needed to make sure I could work on these 5-6 hour one-way trips. But it's been it's created a lot more efficiency for us. We've slept a dozen plus nights on this thing now. It allows me to truly get out there, be on the road, go all around the Commonwealth, and understand the unique opportunities and challenges of each area. This isn't just about winning a campaign. I mean, all of us want to win a campaign, but for me, it's about making sure that I can deliver on these promises of making Virginia number one again for business and job growth. And you can't do that unless you get out there and talk to the people in these areas and really come up with solutions. And as an entrepreneur, that's what I love. That's what energizes me. People say, don't you get exhausted on the road so much?
Don't you get exhausted on the road so much?
But it is tiring. But I get energized by going out there and talking to people and having them share opportunities for their localities to really grow that economy there, and together come up with some ideas that we could implement to really reach that full opportunity and that full potential of that area. And then I get excited. I get back in the RV. I get that policy down. I kind of tweak it some. I put it out there in the archive, so we've got it to kind of start working on as we go into the next session. And that gives me more energy. So I love doing this. It's wonderful. And not only are we going to actually have solutions for the Commonwealth and grow jobs in the economy, but we're going to win this race as well.
You're energized.
We're energized. We started our day coming over to see you, and then we're going to get back in our RV and head out west a little bit.
Thank you for visiting us. So we're going to take a picture of Mellow Yellow when we go to top of the hour news. Glenn Davis, though, you're looking pretty energized. You lost weight, so I know you're working.
We started out, I talked to Bob McDonald right before the race started, and he said, Glenn, 2 things. 1, eat well. 2, make sure you exercise. How are you doing? And I said, Bob, I've had more McDonald's in the last month than I think I've had the last 10 years combined. But now we've got healthier food on the RV. I'm doing better. Haven't figured out the exercise thing yet, but we're trying to get there. Running behind the RV is not working so well.
Right, that's not going to work so well. But look, you say you've put, 8,000 miles on it so
8,000 miles since April 15th.
So it's going to be interesting. And I love the concept of your campaign where you're going out and talking to people before you're raising money. I mean, normally everybody does the opposite. They want to put in the big financial report and said, I got like Ed Gillespie, I got $1 million. Who cares? The bottom line is you got to be able to talk to people. They got to be stakeholders in your campaign. And that's where the work comes in. Having the fancy fundraisers in Washington, D.C. or Northern Virginia, I mean, you need to have those, obviously, but it's no substitute for grassroots backers.
You're right. And, John, people can look at my other races. They can look at my delegate races, my city council races. This isn't unique to this race. This is how I've always done it. I've said I'm a businessman, not a politician, and that's just not a cliche. That's the truth. It's in my DNA. And when you start businesses, when I've started mine, when people have come to me with their ideas and wanted to talk about them, you don't go up to someone with a business plan and say, I have this idea. Here it is. Now, please give me money and join my team. You go out there, you build it, you bring it to revenue, you show it's viable, and then you come and gain support and get investors. And it's no different than a campaign. I don't believe you go out there and say, I want to run for this position. I want to run for lieutenant governor. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. I may change my message a couple times to see what works. But please give me money because I'm going to be really good at it. For me, it's let me go out there. I already have a message. That message, growing my Virginia turnaround plan, right? Make Virginia number one again for business and job growth, modernizing education, growing small businesses, tax reform, stuff I've been working on for years. This isn't new. And so that was going to be my plan. That is my passion. And I wanted to make sure I could get out there, and that message would resonate, because if that message didn't resonate, I just wasn't running. I wasn't going to go look for another message like what someone else has. I was going to stick to that message, but it's been resonating, and I need to make sure I could travel 300 days. We got the RV. That's going very well. I'm on top of everything.
I mean, think about that, traveling 300 days out of 365. And that's like not doing your regular job. You still got that. You're still a House of Delegates member. You still got to do constituent services. You got to go through the General Assembly. When the General Assembly is in session, you can't raise money for your LG campaign. This is not an easy thing to do, to be on the road that much. But I love your mellow yellow. I love the foundational concept of your campaign. And look, Ralph Northam is going to be the Democratic nominee for governor.
Yep.
He's got a huge base in Hampton Roads. I don't care what anybody says. He's got a geographical base. He's going to carry Northern Virginia. You're going to need a balance. And I think regardless of how the nominating process is set up, you're going to be right there. Now, let's get to that, Glenn Davis. We all are thinking in the media, like me, that is going to be a convention in Charlottesville in May because a deal was made. However, State Central's turned over. Now we're starting to hear from people that are newly elected to State Central. They don't give a rat's tail about what deal was made. They weren't there. They're flipping votes for a primary. Now I'm getting people telling me it looks like the convention people might not have the votes.
Well, John, let me finish up just one last piece on the last question, because I don't want people to think we're not raising any money going forward. We committed to self-fund this thing for the first 3 months. So those that are interested in donating, we will start accepting donations here very soon. I did not put a donate button on my website on purpose up to this point, but one is popping up. So I don't want people to think that we don't need anything going forward. The goal was not to take all the money out of Shelley and my bank account to do this, but we definitely wanted to seed it ourselves to prove the message. On to your question, though, I can't tell whether it's going convention or primary. One day it's one day it's the other. We're gearing up for both. We got into this race thinking it may be a convention, and we've got a good path to the finish line and a way to win that. If it goes primary, I'm not going to complain. There's a good path for us to win that one too. I happen to be the only person from Hampton Roads running, and that's a huge geographic territory and a large voter base. So I think we're good either way. A lot of messages are resonating, and then people are coming to me with things that honestly have nothing to do with me or my opponents. For example, I'm in the House of Delegates, right? We got 66 of us, and I'm in a pretty strong Republican district. And if I have the honor to serve as Lieutenant Governor, we're going to have, hopefully, I've got someone to step into my shoes. He's going to win my seat. We'll keep 66. If he happens to not be able to pull it off, we have 65. We're still good. In the Senate, you got one of my opponents that spent $1.3 million to win a seat, 45,000 votes cast. Self-admittedly, he won by less than 100 votes. And now, if he becomes lieutenant governor, we're going to have a special election for that Democratic seat, probably 2 months out before 2018. That puts the majority of the Senate at risk. If we lose the majority in the Senate, does anyone really care who LG is at that point? Granted, the LG can break ties, but you don't get to vote in every thing. Budget issues, you're not breaking the ties.
So you're talking about Reeves, right? Senator Bryce Reeves.
Yeah, great guy. Jill's a great girl. They're both wonderful, but we got to make sure that we continue to hold the Senate. And that's one thing that someone mentioned to me, that they said, Glenn, this really needs to be considered. Is it enough to put him there and risk the majority in the Senate? Because we all know that the Democrats will probably raise more money than the Republicans running for that seat in a special election right before the 18th session.
Glenn, I want to get to the UVA slush fund, which unbelievable. We had Chap Peterson on earlier. $2.3 billion operating budget slush fund. Look, you're in those meetings. The University of Virginia comes to your meetings, begs for money,
right,
begs to raise tuition. And then we find out they got $2.3 billion that they hid from everybody.
Yep.
They did it in such a way that you couldn't get a FOIA request. Helen Dragus blew that whistle on it the other day. This is the people's money. This is a public institution. $2.3 billion in cash. Who has that?
Oh, John, I'm telling you, this is crazy. It's absurd. You can imagine the discussions we've all been having. And to me, it hits deep. Probably what a lot of people don't know about me. When I was a student at George Mason University, I started an organization called NOT, No Obnoxious Tuition. And it was a group of us students that rallied against the huge tuition increases back in the early 90s. We had a rally at Mason. We went on to the Capitol. We did some lobbying in Richmond. There was a rally down at ODU. And that's always been a big passion of mine. I didn't grow up with a lot of money in my family, and it was very difficult for me to be able to go to school and for my parents to be able to cover some and me to be able to cover some. And so to be sitting here, what are we talking now, 20 years later, and 25 years later, and seeing the same issue exist, and then see it because there's this slush fund that's being hidden, is just absurd. I've got legislation that's been drafted. We're dropping next week. That's going to get rid of the FOIA exemption, the blanket FOIA exemption. So when it comes to discussing budget issues, when it comes to discussing dollars and cents, there is no FOIA exemption. That's got to come to light. If this slush fund would not exist without people knowing about it, if there was not the ability to communicate via email its growth, its use, ideas for the future opportunities with it. So we're going to get rid of that. And, at that point, if UVA can justify a $2.3 billion slush fund and the taxpayers are fine with it, God bless them. But if they do what I think they're going to do and say this is exactly why we don't need to raise tuitions and this is not where our tax dollars need to go, then it's going to allow the General Assembly to take action and be able to put the taxpayers' dollars to better use. And we're going to get that resolved next session.
Well, you got to do something because it's outrageous what they've did. When I had Chap Peterson on, I'm going to ask Senator DeSteph the same thing. The fact that they made believe that these discussions were happening in personnel matters, so there couldn't be media there, they couldn't get FOIA'd, that's just deception. And that you just can't have that. This is a public institution, right? Taxpayer funded. You just can't have that. I want to talk to Glenn Davis, running for lieutenant governor, about these new CNBC polls as it affects the ability to do business in Virginia. Can you share some of that with our audience?
Sure. John, people are starting to talk about this year's business rankings. I've been talking about this since, before I was in the General Assembly, but definitely since 2014 when I got there. Virginia's fallen from number 1 in the nation for business and job growth to now, with the new rankings 2 days ago, to number 13. We've fallen 5 years in a row. And it's because, in large part, we're 36th in the nation when it comes to the cost of doing business. In other words, the tax burden placed on in-state businesses. We have tax policies that are so outdated that they come in conflict with new tax policies that the overwhelming majority of other states have adopted that force double taxation on businesses located in Virginia. So they're actually paying effective tax rates north of 10%. For example, if a Virginia cybersecurity company protects computers in Maryland, Virginia says you pay income taxes on that money to Virginia because the work's being done here. Maryland says the customers in Maryland, we want income taxes. You pay it there, and now you wonder why cybersecurity companies are moving to Maryland. I mean, this is absurd. We see this going on, but people don't understand the causality, and it's because of what we're talking about with these CNBC polls and some of these antiquated tax policies. And what makes it even worse, John, is when a Maryland company comes into Virginia to compete for cybersecurity services and business in Virginia, Maryland says, the customers in Virginia, we're not going to charge you income tax. And Virginia says, well, you did the work in Maryland, we're not going to charge you income tax. So now I've given a competitive advantage to an out-of-state company competing for a Virginia opportunity against Virginia companies. How asinine is that?
Asinine.
I mean, that's why I'm running. John, I'm not. If you look at my Virginia turnaround plan to make us number 1 again, you're not going to see social issues on there. I'm a business guy. I don't have the wisdom of Solomon. But I know how to create jobs. I know what tax policies hurt entrepreneurs and hurt small businesses and which tax policies bring them. I know what good tax credits look like, and I know what tax credits look like that honestly don't do a daggone thing, but it's just some smoke and mirror game that gets played. And if we look at those, we take that money, we redeploy it, we level the playing field, we're going to grow small businesses around the Commonwealth. We'll be number 1 again, not when, 15 years out, while I'm lieutenant governor. And that's why I'm running. We got a lot of great people in this race. We've got an amazing attorney. I love her. She's a ton of fun, and she'd be great with justice reform and everything. I've got a great guy who it was a prior police officer and understands that quite a bit. Great, detective. But I'm the entrepreneur and small business owner. Whatever the citizens and the voters feel like is necessary in 18, they can make that choice. We got a great field, but I'm just thinking we need to grow this economy. and I'm the guy to do it.
All right. That's it. You just heard from Glenn Davis running on jobs in Virginia. Want more information? Go to glennrdavis.com. That's glennrdavis.com.